Hello and welcome back, everyone. Happy Monday, and also Mod Monday. We are bringing back an old series that we used to do, if I recall correctly, which is showcasing mods on a Monday, and this time we are doing it with the More Unique Companies mod, which adds over 600 new unique companies to the game, and these companies are relatively well balanced relative to vanilla companies. I think there's a few that are a little bit pushed, and a lot that are quite a bit weaker, and so overall, it's a similar distribution as it relates to companies, and I do think that this pairs extraordinarily well with some of the gameplay aspects that have been added in the Charters of Commerce DLC. In particular, you have the added industry rights that can be granted, and the idea of trying to shuffle around and Tetris in the perfect company setup where you have coverage over as many industries as possible, or are choosing a particular vertical integration of industries, this type of thing. This mod really facilitates these types of game plans, as well as gives you a bunch of companies that are historic in case you wanted to also engage in more of an RP play rather than this company Tetris, and it is quite a bit of fun. In our Ottoman run that we have here, we are, for example, actually using one of the vanilla companies here in the Masir Spinning and Weaving Company, and then we have a rather strong company, a tooling company out of Serbia here, northern Serbia, which of course we cannot pronounce, but this is giving prestige tools. This company does look fantastic. It is quite strong, and the main outlier for these will be the bank companies, or for this mod will be the bank companies, which have a ton of bonuses, notably +1 max number of companies. The kicker is, though, you can only have one bank per nation, and so an additional sort of, in addition to this 600 plus companies, the one little thing that is added is this notion of a banking company, or a banking where you will have some pretty strong modifiers like minus loan interest rate, extra investment pool contribution, and this will vary from bank to bank, but this is kind of notable in particular. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the Steam page for this, and then we're going to take a look at some companies to showcase this mod a little bit here. So in the workshop, the title of the mod is 1.9.6, More Unique Companies. If you search for More Unique Companies, you should be able to find it. The overview lists a bit of information, but the kind of important things are there's more than 600 companies available. There's a spreadsheet which shows how balance is done, where different points values are assigned to each thing that the company could give you, whether it's industries or whether it is bonuses from prestige. And then also, notably, there's a little bit of a blurb. Banks are important, they're underrepresented, and this is the idea behind banks, but if you don't like the OP banks or the OP companies, there is a game rule which disables these banks, which is going to be quite nice. We'll cruise through and take a look at some of the screenshots that are available in the workshop here for the banks. We do see, we have some Austrian companies in here. This looks like a relatively good combo with the coal and the glass. There are some aspects of companies that are available in this mod that are not available in vanilla. An example is going to be multiple prestige goods on a single company, although these industries aren't exactly very good industries here, and I do believe this is a choice sort of thing, because that looks like silk, that looks like glass or porcelain, that looks like opium, and I do think that these will be available on the add-on company. And so the company you add on, you can add on, and whatever you add on, it is going to give you the prestige good for that. So that is an interesting sort of interaction. You will see there are going to be some quite strong companies, especially ones that have tools and prestige tools. This is probably going to be the premium that we are going for most of the time. Some of these companies might be recognizable to you. I don't recognize a lot of these companies in terms of like history, but there is a ton in here to represent. There's a bunch of different icons that are not kind of vanilla icons. I don't know exactly where all of them are from. We see a little bit of prestige rubber in here, which is not something that is available in vanilla, if I'm not mistaken. And is this Michelin? It looks like Michelin. Maybe we'll get some stars for our restaurant, but there is quite a bit of stuff in here. Looks like this one can add a whole bunch of different industries, so that's quite good. And then this is an example of a strong modifier that's not available available in vanilla. There's a lot of interesting modifiers that aren't available in vanilla. +5 maximum innovation investment, but maybe not the best industries with the fertilizer and the gold, although we can add on something like rubber. And so this is a very solid looking company. We do have a Kansai tool company that looks quite strong, doesn't have prestige tools, which would be preferable, but anything that has tools and iron is going to be relatively good. We do see a couple little snippets of these companies slotted in and in action. Here's another example of an interesting modifier, more resource discovery chance, which is not a common modifier. Actually, I don't think it's present at all in vanilla, and we will have here prestige meat and a few extra available industries, or it looks like we had it added on one, plus trade routes, rights have been given to that company. And then cruising up on the very last of this, we see an example of what looks like a pretty strong company, prestige tools plus steel and engines, depending on what the add-on company is. But maybe this doesn't have an add-on company. It does look relatively strong. That's a decent amount of throughput on the rye farms, so not necessarily expecting it. Here we see another example, prestige good transportation, not available in vanilla, but overall, you know, the bonuses for these do not seem overwhelmingly powerful. It's a 2-industry company here, and what it is giving is a little bit of urban center throughput for its prestige bonus and prestige transportation. This doesn't seem overpowered, but it is interesting, and it is kind of some new options available. Let's take a look at some of these other companies here. Taking a look at the land from down under, one of the stronger companies, in my opinion, the Broken Hill proprietary company, which is going to feature oil, iron, coal. You can add on top of this lead. These are pretty solid industries, but on top of that, we get the prestige Australian coal. There's another company in Australia that gives Australian coal. You can see us cruising through here. We are going to see several Australian unique companies. The Australian Gas Light Company is going to also feature Australian coal. I don't know what industries we can add on here. It does look like oil, so a little bit of double dipping / overlap, having multiple access to coal companies. You can see as we scroll through here some bank. Another interesting one that we did notice kind of taking a look through here, Union Steamship Company, which gives Swift Merchant Marine. This is Prestige Merchant Marine, which is interesting. Probably not the strongest company. Looks like we have some industries that we can add on. Nothing that looks too crazy, but you are going to have Panama and Suez Canal, so this isn't necessarily strong, but it's certainly interesting. Gives a little bit of trade advantage too, so that is going to be quite nice. Coming in for a look at Russia, we are going to see the Cherepavetsles Company, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, which is an interesting one, featuring a prestige good for softwood. This is, again, something that's not available in vanilla. Overall, the company doesn't look insane. It does allow you to add on tools, so tools plus wood by itself is pretty strong, so this is maybe one that is highly usable, and certainly if you're looking to export a lot of this softwood, it is an interesting idea. Coming up, we can take a look at some of the Russian banks, which are maybe going to be a little bit more interesting, where we have the State Bank of the USSR. I think this is one of the few banks that gives additional authority. It's going to give additional minting. I think that this company, or sorry, this mod might also, no, this isn't the mod we're thinking of. There's another mod that uncaps the minting cap of 200 million, where minting stops going up. We will have a little bit of legitimacy, loyalists from high legitimacy. This is quite nice, but also the State Bank of the Russian Empire is going to be an interesting one. The companies associated with it aren't necessarily the best for a bank. Every single bank will have paper mills associated with it, but we do see a relatively high government dividend efficiency. Now, without going into too much detail on command economy versus laissez-faire and why command economy is bad, one of the reasons is you don't have enough government dividends efficiency. With a 7%, which I think is one of the higher values that we can get off of a bank, it starts to look a lot better. So if you wanted to do a sort of RP communist run, the bank that you can add on is certainly an interesting shout for this, allowing you to get more government dividends efficiency. I think in vanilla, the max is either 65 or 75%. And so this will make it so you are deleting either like 25 or 33% less money as we go through it. This Russia has gotten chopped down to size quite a bit, and so there aren't necessarily as many companies to scroll through as we scroll through here, but there are a ton of attainable companies. If you look here, 200 companies available for Russia. shout out to forgetting that human rights exist, we do have the Nestle company, which is an interesting one, which is giving company the throughput bonus. It itself doesn't look that strong. You can add on tools, but there's going to be a lot of really good tools options in the Swiss area in particular. We see that this is an example. We get prestige engines. We can add on tools onto that. We see Reiter, if I'm not mistaken, it is a Swiss company here as well, which gives a tooling workshop option, also gives potential for automobiles and maximum innovation investment. We see again this rather strong modifier that is present. And then if we kind of scroll up, we can see even another good tooling company. Pretty good density overall is going to be in North Germany, South Germany, and France for some of these companies, because these guys did make a lot of companies during the Victorian era. I think that the companies are limited to the time scope of the game, and we can see here a rather strong company in Sulzer Brothers Limited, which is got the steel already added. You could add iron instead, but this is going to have prestige tools, and so this looks fairly solid, and this is going to have a little bit of max innovation investment. And in fact, being able to stack this in Switzerland is kind of an interesting vibe in itself. But we were noticing when we were poking around, there's a lot of good Swiss companies, there's a lot of good North and South Germany companies, and British companies as well. Let's take a look at America. In particular, I am from America, so I recognize a lot of the American companies, and this really gives me kind of a bit of a feel for RP play, and I think this is going to be the case for a lot of different nations, if that's the nation you're from. I think one worth pointing out is the DuPont company with minus military goods costs. Awesome for a military industrial complex thing. One of these companies around here does have prestige ammunition. If you wanted to pair up Walt Disney and Henry Ford, you could do that with the Walt Disney company, which is very, very recognizable. But a lot of these companies, especially the banks, are definitely things that we recognize. We see the U.S. has taken a big chunk of Mexico in this run, so we do see the Banco Nacional de Mexico, of course, in America, but we will also see, well, it is in America either way, but just not the United States in real life. But here we see Wells Fargo. There are a ton of different banks and a ton of different recognizable things. The Coca-Cola company very cutely does have opium, because this was the old Coke back when Coke had Coke in it, and so this is an interesting one. It does have prestige groceries. We see a lot of companies that are prestige groceries. I think they tend not to be that good, and maybe just lean into, generally speaking, into kind of more of an RP play, but I really love that they're available. Coca-Cola is probably a good example, although this company might actually be good. A lot of these do have a minus minimum expected standard of living. If we take a look at what the USA, the AI, has decided to slot in, we can see that, of course, they don't get really rid of William Crapp and Sons, but they do have this C&E Cooper company, which is maybe one of the better companies we see in the USA in terms of what's been added. This is a furniture tools company with prestige tools, and it also has a wood add-on here, and so this is pretty good. It's generally kind of a little bit tough to get coverage on furniture. There's a lot of good industrial looking companies for the USA, and so the fact that there's a bunch of good industrial companies doesn't make it look like this pivot sort of to furniture. You'll probably be able to find coal and iron and steel and engines around here somewhere. In particular, they've also slotted in a bank, the American Express Bank, yet another example of one of the many banks that is featured in the US. There's the John Deere company somewhere around here, which does have prestige engines. I think in vanilla there's not too much in terms of what you can have for prestige engines, but you can get that in here for the John Deere company, which is going to have add-on steel or cars. There's a ton of cars companies in the US and elsewhere. There's a very big amount of car companies, but we do see prestige tractors, which is going to be quite nice. It's available in a few spots, and we see that it helps out the yeoman farmers. But really, really a lot of things that we recognize if we're from the United States. And so if you wanted to pay a particular RP run and you're interested in the US, there really is a lot of stuff that you can do here in regards to that in this mod. Of course, there's only one thing viewers want, and it's Japan content, so we'll show off some of the more interesting companies here for Japan, starting out with Suzuki. We do see minus military goods cost, which is, again, a military industrial complex, an interesting one. It's a tooling company. You have a couple of add-ons. You have a very strong output modifier. This is quite a bit stronger than throughput. This only increases the output side. It doesn't increase inputs. And we see something that is going to be featured in a lot of these Japanese companies, especially these car companies, which is Japanese aircrafts. And so there's a lot of different prestige goods for military goods kind of kicking around all over the place. And so this will give you an advantage or a way to break parity with a certain PMs for the military. So you would want to use more aircrafts as Japan if you are to get that late into the game. We also see Toyota Industries, which looks relatively strong here with the automobiles output modifier. I do think this is a strong modifier. There are American companies that have this. A lot of different car companies have this, but this is paired with the negative throughput, but the negative throughput really not that big a deal, and so this is going to be quite strong. Textile mill throughput 10%, also pretty nice to be getting in here as well. There are some other really strong ones here for Japan. In particular, this company I thought was relatively good. We get the rice farms building throughput. We get the prestige tools. And we also have the ability to add on steel. So you have steel, iron, and the tools, which all just kind of vertically integrate very well. Kind of a bit of an interesting company. Maybe won't have the best coverage in terms of being able to slot in a bunch of stuff because you're hitting a lot of different things. We see Yamaha giving an interesting modifier in wealth education access. This is on several different companies. This is going to be a very, very strong modifier. And so this is maybe something you want to keep an eye out for if you're looking around some of these companies. We see a Sumitomo with the maximum innovation investment. Again, one of these pretty strong modifiers. And it has some good add-on industries in stuff like rubber. The Bank of Japan in particular, I think this is the only bank where we've seen offense and Navy offense in particular. I didn't even know Navy offense was a modifier before I took a look at this that you could add on to, and so this is going to be an interesting bank. Of course, you're trading off in other areas. These aren't the best industries for a bank, the add-on industries. You can add on rails if you like, but some pretty strong modifiers for a lot of these Japanese companies here. I think there was one more that we wanted to show off. I think this is it. Minus supply consumption in the armed forces get boost on Nissan, which is of course going to have the add-on of cars, and so this is a bit of an interesting one as well here. I think there was one more that we thought was pretty good. I guess we're not seeing it, must have scrolled past it or what have you, but there's so many to take a look at and like unpack, and just scrolling through this just kind of, I think it gives you an idea. This isn't even all the companies that Japan has as a result of their interests. We're not even looking at that menu. This is stuff that is based on the land that Japan has. This is something we wanted to highlight though. Flat investment pool contribution as a modifier on the aristocrats. Very strong, but we see a lot of these really strong prosperity bonus companies on these port plus trade center companies. Although this is port plus rails. So that is a fascinating combination we have here. But I think we're going to wrap that up, and that's going to be all that we cover for this mod. There's over 600 companies. We aren't going to cover anywhere near all of them, but hopefully we've given a good idea of some of the places where there is really strong advantage and this sort of thing that you would maybe want to lean into. Man, minus 10% mill goods cost is going to be, this is a vanilla company, but when stacked with a bunch of these other ones, or something to keep in mind with. But you can build, there's more with more unique stuff you can build out in more unique ways and try and lean into individual strategies that are maybe interesting and unique. So I would definitely recommend giving this mod a look. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any suggestions for other mods for us to cover, feel free to leave them in the comments, this sort of thing, and do the YouTube algorithm stuff, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and other than that, have a happy Monday, or a mod Monday, whichever you prefer.